Thank you so much. So nice to be here with you all, friends. Um, so I'm going to take as the jumping off point for both the meditation and the teaching of this week's Parsha, which is called Sav. And as you're reading it, your eyes probably glaze over, and it might be a lot of details about getting the priests completely clothed, and many details about sacrifices, a wide range of sacrifices, what to do with them and how to clean from them, and all of these instructions for Aaron and his sons and the priests. And it's easy to kind of get lost in it. And the truth is, I mean, when you kind of pan out, you realize what is actually all of this running around for. It's because the Mishkan is being fully completed, and the Parsha ends with this set of instructions about, after all this busyness, the job of the priests is to wait, to do kind of nothing, to wait at the entryway to the place of meeting. Actually, maybe you can put it into the chat, Rachel. There we go. This is the verse where it says, "You must not leave the entrance to the courtyard of the tent of meeting for 7 days until the day that completes your installation days, for God will install you into the priesthood for 7 days." So there is this moment that there's a pause. There's some thing happening, this installation process for the priests. And so there's a waiting. And then there's a little bit more about what happens in this waiting period. If you can put that piece up, Rachel, just a few verses later. So why is this waiting period happening? He has done this on this day. So has God commanded me to do, to atone for you. Let's just hold that for a second. What's that atoning about? And one last verse. I'm sorry, it's my fault that these are coming in little pieces. This is how I sent them. You must remain day and night. So this is a repeat of this instruction. You must remain day and night for 7 days at the entrance to the courtyard, keeping God's watch, in order that you not die. For thus I was commanded. So we get a little more clarification. What are they having to do for those 7 days? Keep God's watch. The Hebrew is ushmartem et mishmartem Adonai. So ushmartem, the root is shomer, keeping. So there's some sense of holding, of keeping, of waiting. What does it mean to keep God's watch? There is a lot of commentary about this moment, this kind of waiting moment. And if we keep in mind that on the other side of the waiting is this promise that God made once the Mishkan was completed. God says, "Ve'asuli mikdash v'shachanti betochech." So they will make me a sanctuary and I will dwell among them. And that's what's going to happen after this period of waiting and keeping God's watch, keeping this divine watch. So what does it mean that will be made a sanctuary? God's presence, the Shekhinah, God's indwelling presence will be made, will saturate us. God will dwell, not just the Mishkan's going to dwell among us, but the Kotzker Rebbe, many commentators say, no, it's not about the God will be living inside of the Mishkan, but that God will be indwelling within the people. So it's a big deal. It's a very big deal what they're waiting for. And after all of the labor of creating this Mishkan, and then these days that are kind of like Aviva Zornberg commentary says that it's kind of like a gestation period. So, or if you live in a place where it's spring right now, this moment where things are getting filled, there's Zornberg uses the word an investiture, like an inhalation of this divine presence is taking place over this week, this period of 7 days. And what's interesting is that the last time the Israelites had to wait for something, bad things happened. You might remember that the last time they were waiting, it was for Moses to come down the mountain with the 10 commandments, and Moses was maybe delayed, or they thought he was delayed. And oof, that out of that anxiety of waiting, they create the golden calf and do this massive, massive mistake, this sin. So we get another period of waiting with hopefully, and it turns out, spoiler alert, better results from this waiting period where they're waiting for the priests to get this installation. And this time something is shifted. They're able to wait with all of the uncertainty and all of the fear and the not knowing. They can just sit in that waiting period. And then at some point, next week's Parsha, there is some moment that is unclear exactly when the moment happens, but all of a sudden God comes to dwell inside of them, within them. So I want us to just maybe hold to think about this idea of maybe in this very moment, you can feel God's presence, this Shekinah presence within you, in which case, amazing. But maybe it's a little harder to actually feel it, to really sense and feel that presence. And so if you're in that place, this might be a moment to just be in that keeping of the watch, listening, breathing, sensing this pregnant period, this period of waiting and seeing and gestating and seeding something that might come to us spontaneously. The other thing I want to put forth for our sit is to ask the question, if you knew that God's presence was either on its way or already within you, how would that change? How would it change how you feel about yourself? How would it change how you treat yourself or how you treat other people? Really concretely, if we can summon up this idea that this presence is within us, it's both part of us and also not part of us at the same time, this godlike presence, this energy, if we were suffused with it, how does that change our reality? And maybe that's the purpose of the gestation period, to become accustomed to it, to let the body begin to open up to this idea of its own connection to holiness. So we'll take that into our meditation. I want to invite you to find yourself a comfortable seat. You can give your shoulders a roll. You can stretch your neck from back to front, whatever feels good for your body as you settle it in. You can close your eyes. You can keep them softly focused in front of you. I invite you to take a few deep breaths. We can almost feel that process of investiture or of inspiration with every single breath. This breath that we didn't create, that we don't keep going, that just is breathing us again and again and again. Maybe we can feel that Shekinah presence with just the breath. With each exhale, you can allow the body to settle, to open and soften a little bit more. You can soften all the muscles of the face, arms, wrists, hands, fingers. You can lean slightly backwards to feel the support of your back behind you, your spine. You can feel the support of what it is you're sitting on. Your mind will likely take you in many, many places, into the future, into the past, planning, analyzing. Every time you notice you're lost in the thoughts, it's not a failure. It's the mind is alive and activated. It's like the heart is beating, the mind is thinking. And it's just a moment, an opportunity to soften and to return to this moment, to this exploration. What would it feel like if God's presence, if some divine presence lived inside of me? How would that change my life? What would that actually feel like? Maybe you can just catch the feeling of it, a smell of it, a taste of it, just the edge of it. As you repeat that question, What would the divine presence, the Shekhinah, feel like in your lungs, in your heart? Moving through your veins. Part of your speech, a part of your brain and your thoughts. What would the feeling, the sensation, what might that feel like? You find yourself in this waiting period, in this moment where you're not sure whether this gestation is happening. You're not sure if you will, in fact, feel this divine presence. You're not sure if liberation is going to happen for you. Can you be kind to that anxiety? Just bringing all the love in the world to that experience. Breathing into it, holding it close. Finding maybe little pockets of faith. Keeping watch for this revelation to show when you're not sure and you're scared. When you're ready, at your own pace, you can begin to open your eyes if they're closed, and to bring your attention back to our space together. Thank you for your beautiful practice today.
Thank you, Yael. And please stick around if you can, if you're able to, for a conversation reflecting on our practice just now. If you need to leave us, we wish you tzitchem l'shalom, farewell. Look forward to having you back. Right now, we have an opportunity for those who are remembering loved ones to do so with the Mourner's Kaddish, if you'd like to, in the chat. Put any names of anyone you're remembering today, please feel welcome to do that. And you can unmute yourself and join me in reciting the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitzgadal, V'Yikadash, Shmei Dikshon,
Leila Mikol
Ela
Darash
Mikol Birchata V'Shirata V'Shirata V'Nechamata V'Natan V'Alma
Reish
Hey Shlama
Lamava
Rabba
Shemaya
Hey
Mikol Yisrael
Yisrael V'Yimru
Amen.
Amen.
Shalom Shalom Bimru Kol Yisei Shalom
Yisrael
Zainu
V'Kol Yoshvei
Kol Yisrael Kol Yisei Tigil
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. And thank you to Rachel, who's been on our tech desk today. So we'll bring Yael back here and thank you, everybody. And so Yael, way to go tackling the parsha that most of the rabbis would definitely. We have ways of avoiding that, we got lots of other things to talk about, but you picked up on the Yemei HaMiluim, right, is the phrase in Hebrew, the time of investiture, right, but filling up Miluim, which is also a term for reserve duty in the contemporary, Israeli army, but the time of filling out or investiture, and I love the invitation of, it can be a tall order to kind of feel the divine presence moving through you. So if you can hit that, maybe, just what would it be like to be dwelling there? And it's interesting that we always read this just before Pesach. In just, in non-leap years, Parshat Tzav is always before Pesach. And the notion of sitting in a place for 7 days, which is, kind of how a lot of us experience Pesach, right? Being at home, being in a place for 7 days.
Yeah, actually, also this Aviva Zornberg that I was mentioning, she also says that the keeping watch is very similar. There's a lot of similarities between that and that moment during the actual, night of Pesach and then the night before leaving, where everybody was like staying in their house. They're also not allowed to leave, just like the priests are not allowed to leave, and they stay there and you don't know what's happening, but like some part of you is already free, even while they were there.
It's the same word of mishmeret. It's the leil shimurim. It's a night of watching and protection, right? So yeah, really interesting convergences there. I mean, I'm wondering for you, as we head into Pesach, as we're living through, every day is a moment, but some moments are more momenty than others.
Nice way to say that.
Um, uh, I'm curious for you, like how are you sort of thinking about or practicing this intention, this invitation of being in a place, being in that space right now.
Yeah, I think while I was guiding in meditation, I get a note about one of my sons is having some disciplinary issues at school, and my phone rings from the school, and I don't know what it's about, but I had a thought of, okay, like, how are we going to get out of this? This is my little tiny, mini, tiny little problem that I don't know how we're going to get out of in my own tiny little life. And then every time I look at the news, I think, how are we going to get out of this? And every time I see the level of pain, and just pain that is being kind of like exacerbated and shown. And so I guess I'm gravitating a lot towards these teachings about not knowing and having to wait and having to tolerate this sometimes feelings of like almost intolerable not knowing.
Mhm.
And it's very alive for me and very helpful for me, I guess, to have these teachings that are like, you can do this. Your people have done this, they've gone the ways where you felt they couldn't tolerate it, and then bad things happen. But then you've also had the moments where you like truly can't see how you're going to get out of it. It seem completely, you know, blocked. The ways seems blocked. It seems unfathomable. And then we get this kind of liberation, this unlikely liberation. So it's very alive for me personally.
Hmm. Yeah, it's really um and I think about even like in a week we'll be going towards the seventh day of Pesach, which is in the story of the um splitting of the sea, right? Which
Right.
is another one of those moments, right? Where just like, yeah, you don't know exactly what the way forward is going to be. It's always clouded, uh,
Yes.
and maybe that's the illusion, right? Is like, you're not actually necessarily going to know the map in a perfect sort of straight line. It's being here and now. The quickest way to there is to be here.
Yes.
Right?
That's what we have. Like we have the right here.
Yeah.
I think I'm always kind of interested too in like this. So this parsha I'm putting forth, in addition to like all these commentators of like this is about the indwelling presence, but we have this like just juxtaposition with like the clouds that cover the Israelites as they're marching away, which is like what is a cloud? It's kind of like this holding presence. So in that case, it's the mother, the thing that holds us and contains us. And in this case, like we are the mother, like we are holding the divine presence inside of us. It's kind of a cool thing that in both cases, like we're not alone,
Mm,
just different versions of this connective place.
mm. Yeah, the cloud is a really interesting idea of being a thing that's not a thing, right? Like
Mhm.
it's identifiable and yet it's always shifting. And as soon as you try to grasp it, it's not there. It's pretty much the opposite of an idol,
Yes.
right? You can't hold it. And yeah, and it's very interesting that you can't go into the Mishkan right now because it's filled up with the cloud. What
Yes.
can be filled up with a cloud? I mean, that's kind of wild, right? Dense
Wow.
fog. Yeah, fascinating. There's a question here Laura had. Would you offer a few words about holding fear and uncertainty while also knowing God's presence is already within each of us?
Mm.
Do I take that?
I think you just said it. It's kind of like the both. The both is like holding the fear. It means like taking care of the fear, like you would take care of somebody who's hurting, somebody that's in pain, or like a child. Like you just, like you don't have to get rid of the fear. You don't have to change the fear. Like the fear is real and it just needs like a lot of love, and it can be with you. And maybe when we do that, you might also just notice that there's places that exist outside of the fear. Like there's the fear can be there, but also maybe there's some sense of like being held or supported. Both can be there at the same time. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I think also what you're kind of pointing towards, it sounds like, is right, there's the fear that may be real, and then there's all the resistance that we may generate around that fear, right? And uh yeah, I made the mistake the other night of looking at the news, shortly before I went to bed, and I saw that the Asian markets were like, totally plummeting. And I'm responsible for a lot of people's payroll. And I'm starting, and it's not a good idea to check the news first thing in the morning, and it's not a good idea to check it before you go to bed at night, for sure. And I was aware of, like, there's all of this fear, but then there's the reactivity around the fear
Yeah.
that, I can get in front of that. Like, okay, the fear's not going to go away, but there's all the ways that I'm responding to that and reacting to it. So
Yes.
something
That's so well said. Yes.
there was another question that came in. There's a lot of good comments too, always. But I want to get and
Well,
thanks folks for you already know the drill. I didn't say it, but when you have a question, just put it all caps question so we see it. So I see Holly's question here. Deep in your moment of anxiety or fear, are you always able to pause and immediately tap into whatever skills or cues remind you of spirit's presence? Does it take time? I don't know about you, Holly. I'm always able to go. I'm kidding. Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I think similarly, like I think mm, yeah, sometimes it's just about like making it to the next minute. Sometimes it's about like what can hold me right now? Like can I hold something? Can I hold something solid? Can I talk to someone? Can I somehow get my like a purchase on the land that can be feel like a source of support? So I don't think I feel it all the time. I think that's exactly why we practice, is to be able to like grow the muscle so that like we can go back to it. It's kind of like, if you walked around and had to pick up heavy things all the time, or if you never had to pick up heavy things, then you have to go pick up something heavy. You're not going to be able to pick it up. We're in a moment of having to pick up something heavy. And so, like, we're doing all of these like bicep curls of meditation so that we can, like, when we have to pick up something heavy, we've got some muscle on us to be able to do that. And I think that's kind of what practice is about.
Yeah, yeah. Why they call it practice, right? Um, yeah. And interesting also that like it picks up on another theme, I think, of the Torah portion about, it's also uh the Kohanim, the priests, like their avodah, their sacred service is something that they practice at, and it's something that's done every day, right? And I saw yesterday on my Instagram feed, I think I saw some meme of a quote from Luciano Pavarotti saying, uh, "It's what I do isn't discipline, it's devotion." And there's a difference, right?
Mm.
And so he's speaking as a singer, as an artist, but I think that was so interesting to me to think of it as, yeah, discipline is like getting on the Peloton, right? Devotion is something else, right? There's another quality to that, and and so, yeah, I was just, reflecting. And so as you were saying here, like, the practice that we do is not only about the discipline of, having that skill to call, and great, we have that life skill. That's great, but it's also, there's a more devotional aspect to it. Like we're devoted to, making a space for the Shekhinah to be manifest, or making, ourselves a vessel for that in our own lives.
I think that's so beautiful. And I think it's also kind of like we imagine sometimes that something that we're devoted to, like the devotion is just the big thing we have within us, and then we just have a channel to devote it to God. But I actually think it is more like what you're saying. I think actually the devotion, or like the divikut, is actually the thing that builds the feeling inside of us. Like we don't have to have the feeling first. It is the thing that builds that feeling of connection with God, or any relationship. Like, I think sometimes none of us feel like serving other people that we have to in our lives. There's moments where it's like not what we want to be doing. But in the service, sometimes you get that feeling of connection and love.
Mhm. Yeah, beautiful. I see Lester is commenting with Stanislavski, and then some comments on Pavarotti too. So Pavarotti's own stage fright that he had to deal with, which is wild. So even the greatest can suffer in this way, right? That there's a real lesson in that. There's a real lesson in that for us. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I think that's a wonderful place for us to pause, possibly. So for those who want to save the chat, I know I always get requests. So if you want to save the chat, you can do that. There's three dots in the upper right-hand corner of the chat box. And you click on that and you can save the chat. We will be back, the sit will be back tomorrow, same time, same channel. And if you can't join us then, join us on Thursday. I believe we're not on Friday. Our office is closed, getting ready for, and you're going to be getting ready for Pesach too, everybody. And we will be off on Monday as well for the second day of the holiday, but the rest of the time we'll be here. So hope you can join us tomorrow or whenever you can. Yael, thank you so much as always. It's really wonderful to have you here. Wishing you and everybody a Chag Sameach, very sweet and liberating Pesach.
Good math, everyone.